Hello, everybody, and welcome back once more to Anime Yay or Nay. I am TheOutbackAl.
I'm Hot for Justice.
I'm Yin&Jung.
I'm Envy Jitters.
I'm Cece. And I'm Kozi.
And we're back. We're doing... What did we watch? More or less, why did we watch?
Live-action
we watched
Cowboy Bebop.
Exactly. Netflix had adapted Bebop, and people have been hearing about it for a while, and, you know, how could we not at some point watch it? This is one of my favorite shows. Not this one. The anime, the original,
yeah.
The real one. I wonder what I'm going to be saying about this. Am I showing my hand a little early?
Maybe a little.
Okay, well, let me ask you the million-dollar question then. Is that better than Death Note?
Most things are better than Death Note. That's not really a question.
More
But is it
enjoyable.
more entertaining? Yeah. Death Note
More
might beat
enjoyable
it.
than Death Note? No.
I will say this: we've only watched 2 episodes because if we don't like it, we shouldn't have to watch all of it. But, you know, we're just sampling it for now to see what happens. Death Note's a movie, so we can watch all that at once.
I mean, I feel like the first 2 episodes of any series are really important to hook audiences in.
That's fair. That's fair. I kind of feel like a lot of shows tend to catch their stride, at least on TV. I've noticed they catch their stride somewhere after episode 3. But with this one, it's like, I feel like Netflix has to get their stuff together out the gate. So I think you're right on that regard. I don't know. Do we want to go yay or nay out the gate? I'm very much a meh here. I could see this getting better or worse, but it's about what I expected. It's competently shot. I'd praise the production design. It's pretty good. But outside of that, it's pretty much just this is Cowboy Bebop, but not as good.
I would say no, because...
So you're a nay?
Yeah,
Okay.
If someone wanted to watch Bebop, and they're like, oh, I'll just do the live action because it'll be faster, like, I don't think they'll be getting the Bebop experience.
And it's funny because
I guess it would be a little
and
faster.
both the anime and the live action are both on Netflix, so like...
Yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
that they did release that just before it, because I think they were probably being like, oh, let's get people hyped for our new series, but it's like
Didn't make it look good.
it's like you're watching Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and then the one with Vince Vaughn. It's like, this is not a good way to go.
Like, I feel like it's just, like, it's incomparable to Bebop.
Yeah. What about okay, so we've had I'm a bit of a meh, leaning a little nay. You're a nay. You said
I didn't say anything yet.
okay, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm 2 episodes in. Obviously, you know, we don't know specifics. I'll probably be the odd man out. I'll say a light yay. Not a full yay, but a light yay, because
Okay.
there's some things about the show I really like. Not as much as the original, but we'll get into it. But I do understand why some people, well, actually a lot of people, considering its reviews, but why a lot of people
I
don't
think
like
it's like
it.
what 38% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
38 for the critics, like 54 for the audience score.
Sounds about right.
So I'm softish yay, but yet again, 2 episodes in.
That is the other thing. I will say, maybe it is something I would have to watch, because episode 4 has great reviews and everyone talks about how great it is.
That's kind of why I'm in the middle. I could see it getting worse. I could see it getting better. I don't really know at this point. It's because I have things to praise. I have things to not praise. It's could go either way for me. How about the rest of you guys?
I'd say based purely on the first 2 episodes, it's a nay for me. But yeah, I have a hard time judging the entire series based off these 2, because
We've only
there
watched
could
a
be
fifth of
better
it.
ones. But I just feel like the changes that they did make didn't really add anything good to it and actually detracted from the original Bebop. And, you know, it's just, I feel like the performances and the direction just didn't work for me for the most part. Though there were a few highlights, like you said. The art direction is pretty good, but it just doesn't make up for everything else that's not. Especially because Cowboy Bebop looks so great in the anime that it's like, it's not like the production itself really improves upon it either.
I'm looking at you.
I don't really know if I have much to compare it to, because I don't know if you remember, but when we watched the animated series, I told you I fell asleep during it.
Okay, so Gab's not in this conversation anymore.
Yeah, I just don't have much
Purely
to compare
not
it
from a you didn't watch the show, more from just like you're out of my life now.
That's fair.
Owls like them be fighting words.
You fell asleep during
There's
Bebop.
gonna need to
You know
be
what?
a new counter
gonna say
of
this,
how
you got a
many
lot going
times
on
Gab
right now.
falls
I
asleep.
do.
You got a lot going on right now. I don't entirely blame you.
I just
Last one.
yeah.
Our entirely fresh perspective.
Yeah,
Cece
happy-
has no Bebop experience.
Absolutely not. Going off that, I put this at like a medium yay, I think, like a 70%. I like the production, I like how it's shot. I think that's interesting. And I'm curious to see where the story goes. I'm definitely moving the anime up higher on my list, but
How does the script hold up for you?
it's awkward at times,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
For a certain character later in episode 1.
I think that's kind of the
Mostly.
biggest problem here. And like anytime you have like a big problem with anything as far as a TV show or a movie goes, it tends to stem a lot from the script sometimes.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
honestly, like in most movies, unless of course like it's shitty CGI or like shitty production, most complaints modern movies deal with writing and characters. I
yeah,
feel
characters, story, plot points that don't make sense. And like, I'm not saying nothing makes sense here. It's mostly in the characters because Bebop is kind of live or die by its characters. And they're there. They're just not them for
They're
the
not
most
cool.
part.
They're lame.
I feel like this has a lot of the problems that the Death Note movie had in that, like, yeah, the movie looks good for the most part. I said before, it's well acted for the most part, but you kind of have this issue of this is not the thing that we signed it up for. This is not the characters or anything like that.
Okay, and to go off of that, I feel like the Death Note movie, for like a kind of spin-off, if it would have been a spin-off, it would have been a great movie. But if this was not Bebop, or it was like a spin-off, like it would still just kind of be eh.
You know, that actually is a very interesting point. Like if they changed the characters' names in that Death Note movie, they weren't L, they weren't Light, they weren't Misa.
Well, they weren't.
Okay,
But
okay, Misa
It was
wasn't.
Light
It was-
Turner.
but
you
if they
talked
did,
about Mia.
yeah, if they weren't L and Light, I think I probably wouldn't have had that much of an issue with the movie. But I just watched the Death Note series to binge so we can watch that movie, and Light and L were such great characters that to me they were butchered.
So like, I feel like they changed enough that it held up as its own story, but
Yeah.
this one, they're trying to follow so closely to the anime, but they're also changing things and it just doesn't work.
That's the problem. Like
Yeah.
you're not like the first episode pretty much follows like the Red Eye episode from like the episode 1 for the most part.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but then but they're also like they're not fully adapting everything, but they're taking elements of the anime and adapting it so it's like a mishmash of everything.
They're also like pulling wildly from the episode list, like bits and pieces.
I mean, I'm going to throw this out there as far as like that goes, because I know the second episode was Teddy Barn, which does not come until much later in the series. But the original show is very episodic. You can watch it out of order for the most part and not have any real issue like jumping in here and there. So I don't really have a problem with them mixing around plot points at different parts of the series. So long as you're not like doing the stuff with Vicious out of order, it works still, I think.
But they kind of did.
Yeah,
Okay.
like bringing
Yeah.
Faye in the way they did in those first episode doesn't work.
No, she kind of sucks.
It was really
and
awkward.
It's like, I can't help but compare this to Death Note again, of like, you have tiers of people who are like doing a really good job to people who are like, I guess you showed up. Like, when we talk about Death Note, everyone talks about Willem Dafoe. Perfect Ryuk. Great job. We can talk about L. L was good. He was not exactly in perfect character, but for what was written, he did an excellent job with it. I give points to Light's dad. He's a good character actor. I like seeing him in
He
stuff.
actually had more character in that movie
Yeah.
than the actual show.
Well,
fair.
yeah. But I think Mia did really well. I actually think that actress is going to have a pretty good career for herself.
She did well. The character was just written off.
No, it was just a
But
bad
the
character.
actress was perfectly fine.
And then you have, what's his face
Nat
from
Wolff.
that Nickelodeon show.
Yeah, Nat
and
Wolff,
he's
yeah.
just kind of there.
His screaming was hysterical, though.
Okay, he did
So
have the
he
best part of the
deserves,
movie.
He made
I
it
will
a
give him that.
comedy.
I will
Yeah.
give him that. Okay. But I think it's kind of the same thing with Bebop. You have, and I can't.
Mustafa Shahir or something like that.
I was glad you said that because I don't want to butcher his name.
I think that's how you pronounce it. I apologize if I got that wrong.
He was Bushmaster in the second season of Luke Cage. I thought he did really well there, and he does really well here. I think Jet's the most on point as a character.
I know
aside from the daughter thing, that's a little bit weird, but as far as a change-up goes, it's not the weirdest change-up.
I'm going to probably get a lot of shit for saying this, but I actually liked John Cho a lot as Spike. I know he's not the same Spike as Steve Blum, because nobody will ever top Steve Blum's Spike.
And this Jet is not the same as that Jet. But as far as, like, closest to what they were before, I think it's definitely Jet.
Oh, yeah.
I think we can give points to John Cho. He's a little old for the role. It's just what it is. And I'm going to give him points. Because you brought up before we started about him, like, keeping it tight. I'm like, we saw him on that show. He looks good.
Well, that's because the camera kept pointing to his abs every 5 seconds.
Okay, yeah. We got to give him points for putting in the work. But
see, they're also trying to, like, market that sex appeal. And it doesn't feel, like, sexy like the anime does.
When she calls him pretty boy and stuff, I'm like, it just doesn't fit. Not because he's not a good-looking man, but just because pretty boy doesn't make sense.
Yeah, speaking of, on the lower end of the spectrum, we got Faye and Vicious, and I'm going to throw Julia in there too because
what is Julia? She doesn't even look like a syndicate member right now. It looks like they're just trying to push her off as a singer.
Yeah, and Vicious's girlfriend, which depending on how you want to look at it, that's kind of what she was, but she was a lot more in the anime.
No, in the anime, she ran away.
Yeah, I know she ran away, and Spike had to, like, die, and, like, they're keeping some of the elements the same, but, like, a big problem is that a lot of these characters, specifically Faye and Vicious, are like, wow, you're really trying to deviate here.
You know, you mentioned earlier about that actress, you know, she was good, but she had bad material. I kind of feel the same way about Vicious. I think the actor did a fine job. It's just the material he was given.
He just wasn't playing Vicious.
Yeah.
He feels like a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like a man baby.
That is the ultimate, like, because you already were telling me that he just looks like a Harry Potter villain.
He does.
Which he does.
He looks so weird.
That is one of the things Cece said.
I was not expecting
Yeah.
Lucius Malfoy and Misa Amane to be the crack ship that gets
You know what? I'm going to say he does not look like a villain. He actually looks like Luna's dad.
Oh.
That's who he looks like, because the hair's a little more messy.
It gave me discount Witcher vibes.
Geralt.
Yeah, something.
Very discount. That's like Kirkland Witcher.
Yes.
I think part of it is
you got him on Witch.com.
like
That's very good. They both use a sword too.
Yeah.
Like, again, that was also, like, Vicious as a character. He wasn't, like, this very overly emotional. He was very cold. He was very calculating, and he was, like,
He was a sociopath.
Cool villain type.
I think what they're trying to do, and I think this is a thing that, like, a lot of people do, is, like, they will try to they want to humanize the villain.
I don't want him to be relatable. I want him to be cool.
No, we don't. He was a fantastic, like, force of nature in the original show, which you could argue is the same thing for, like, a lot of people who are just purely evil. Maleficent in the original Sleeping Beauty, or the Wicked Witch of the West. They're just evil because
The
they're
only
evil.
thing I can think of why they changed it is because in both this show and the original show, him and Spike were good friends until they're falling out. Maybe they wanted to better explain why Spike would be friends with him.
I get that, and that's kind of one of the things where I'm kind of like, I never understood why Julia was with Vicious or why Vicious would want a relationship. You said that it was probably just something about, like, oh, this is just what powerful people
It was
do.
it was like a stepping stone.
Yeah, but, like, I think very clearly in the original, like, Vicious is a sociopath who is, like, has one thing in mind. I want to be in control of the entire, like, underworld.
I think the reason Vicious wanted Julia is because Julia wants to be with Spike, right? So he's like, I have
in
to
this one or the original?
possess Julia. In the original.
It's a possession thing. Without a doubt, it's a possession thing.
But it's
and then when
like,
they got
I don't know
together-
why Julia wanted to be with Vicious. I think it was a stepping stone for, like, her to be more powerful, but it's like... That's
More
what
than
I think
likely.
of.
I agree with you. I'm just like, it has to be that, because otherwise I'm just like, Vicious, why are you wasting your time being in any relationship when you could be hustling to get to your goal?
If they wanted to humanize him, like, it's very easy to humanize these characters. We've seen tons of villains, like, in all of these remakes where they humanize them, or you can look at something like Black Panther, where I would say level of
Killmonger was great.
sociopathic tendencies matches up pretty well between those two.
Oh yeah, Killmonger was one of the best MCU villains
what
for a
I'm-
reason.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think they should have done any of that. And I know that makes your villain boring from a personality standpoint, but they are a much bigger threat and far more intimidating when they're just a force of evil. And I know that's basic, but
I mean, there's a reason why Dio's
Yeah.
so popular from
Before they
he's
JoJo.
just evil.
Yeah,
Before they revealed his face, where
Yeah.
they were just getting like the shots of like his profile reacting, he felt so much cooler.
I give
Yeah.
more credit to the camera work than anything else there. And I think like that is a point where we can praise the production design is good.
although
This
I was really.
looks like Bebop. The camera work is good. They're using a little more Dutch angle than I like, but
Did he
it's
have
still pretty
Did
good.
he have a dead shark fetish in the original show? Because that whole shot was weird.
They're just in a fish market. They're in a freezer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was like
That's
a
not
huge
a
fish
fetish thing.
thing.
It was like, yeah.
I just
You
thought.
just-
What if?
Honestly, I've seen a lot of gangster movies. I've seen
There
a
were
lot of
more
mob movies.
tanks,
There's a
though.
lot of like kill someone in a freezer and preserve the body kind of deal. So that didn't. Yeah, but
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
But the noodle thing, that is a fetish, right?
definitely.
I don't know. It's a fetish. Guy likes noodles. What's the big deal?
I don't even think it's he likes noodle. They're broke. Like that's the whole point of Bebop is
Oh,
like,
yeah.
they always fail to get the bounty. They're always broke. They're living off of ramen.
Even when they get the bounty, they break so much stuff that it takes up the whole thing. Like, that's part of the relatability of these characters is that they're always down on their luck, no matter what. And it's kind of like, it's almost like a lot of, like Charlie Chaplin back in the day. His character was always the tramp. He's always down on his luck, no matter what he does. So it's like just a likability thing, I think, to some degree.
Okay, I think we could pick script apart for in hours.
Yeah.
Like production wise, what do you feel like they did well? Because like
Oh, I mentioned it. I think
For
the production
me-
design is great. I think the camera work, for the most part, is really good. Again, I think they're tilting the camera more than they need to, but like I've seen a lot of shots where I'm like, oh, that's a nice shot. And I was like, we were watching together. I was like pointing out, like, that's a good shot.
That one,
That's good. The one with
first
Julia.
one of Julia was
That was a really good shot.
That
I
was like
like
a
a lot
noir
of these.
shot
There's
to me.
there's competent people behind the camera using the camera.
And I think for the most part, the action scenes were pretty well done. Like they
Yeah.
they do like they use the
It's-
guns and the
it's a
shootouts
little
and-
more stylized than normal, but I think that works for an entire
their action scenes were very faithfully adapted.
He's
Yeah,
Is
this
he
is a
doing-
nitpick. He's using Jeet Kune Do, but he's leaning a little more towards Wing Chun than I'd normally see Spike do. But it's incorporated into it, so it's like okay,
Oh
you're
no, the
focusing
martial
a little
arts nerd is coming
but
out.
then they also
bit.
use
What
the
do you want? I did this. I picked Spike Spiegel for the brawler and won. So yes, the martial arts movie nerd is gonna
But-
talk about it.
But yeah, the obviously they got the gun shootouts right, and the red eye scenes I thought were really good too. Like
That was pretty good. They almost like ripped that completely from the anime,
Now-
which you can praise for remaking it, or you can be like, wow, you didn't do anything new.
now again,
I
it's
don't
been
know. It depends on what you want to do.
it's been a
I
hot
think it
minute.
was really good.
It's been a hot minute since I've seen the original show. In the anime, did he die in that way?
She killed
Who?
him
The couple.
as Asmanov.
Yeah, they got shot down by like.
No, she
Yeah.
kills him. Because he had taken more red eye.
Oh yeah, okay. I guess
So
they
she
shipped-
shoots
so
him
she
in the
shot
ship.
him, and then the ship.
Because like I
Gets
remember
blown
watching that.
apart by
I thought
cops.
that scene was effective how she died, but like I don't remember it being that way in the original
So-
show.
In the original, she wasn't an heiress.
No, it was just two
She
people.
was still poor. Which lent more like gravity to like him actually needing to
Support
get the
her,
red
help
eye
her, yeah.
and get out. Like the whole heiress thing was
I-
just a way to shoehorn Faye in.
Yo, yeah, and they really horn
Mhm.
her in.
We should probably talk about Faye, considering that.
Yeah, I go back and forth between which one's worse: the characterization of Vicious and the characterization of Faye.
I do have
It-
a question for Yin on
Mhm.
Faye. You were very upset about the pants color. How do you feel knowing it's not pants? It's just shorts and tights.
It doesn't
And
make
boots.
a difference, because for me, it's not the fact that they're pants. It's the fact that it clashes with the rest of the outfit, because it's just all black on the bottom.
It's like you're wearing red, yellow.
And then just
honestly,
black.
it's not even black. It's like brown.
Yeah, it just feels weird, and just aesthetically, it looks wrong to me. I don't know why they couldn't just give her yellow pants.
I feel like what they did with just making it booty shorts and tights did not actually detract from the sexualization. Because when she's moving, you can still very clearly see that.
Part of me is like, I
feel like her jacket did more to detract from the over-sexualization of the character.
Here's the thing, too, with her sex. Obviously, Faye Valentine, iconic.
She's a femme fatale.
femme
Yeah, that's
She's like the archetype.
Obviously, her outfit was very risque for back in the day, but her personality was what made her really sexy more.
Yeah, she was cool, which I think
Yeah.
is a big issue here, because I think ultimately a lot of the characters don't feel cool in the way that they did before. They feel like, I think to some degree they're a little more relatable because they're a little more vulnerable. They're a little more screwing up a lot. But
Cece, go
why are
ahead
we
and
looking up to
say
them?
what you've already said. They're not cool.
It's like the serious black meme. They're not edgy. They're just homeless.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Faye in the original, I think this is the ultimate problem with Faye in this one. They just made her a bratty teenager. They made her a bratty teenage runaway who's in her 30s. And one, it doesn't work with the rest of the dynamic because her banter isn't banter anymore. It's just cursing at the people whose ship she's on. But in the other one, whether or not she was ever in control of the situation she was in, she always felt like she was in control, whether she was faking that or not. And that was what made her cool. No matter what she's put in, she's like, I'm either going to flirt my way out of this, fight my way out of this, sneak my way out of this. I am going to get out of this.
She had a very defined skill set where, at least in the 2 episodes we've seen, it's very lacking.
Yeah, she was good at talking to people and figuring out them, manipulating them, figuring out their weaknesses and whatnot. She had excellence. She was good with her hands, figuring out like the dealing the cards and all that sort of stuff. She had, you're right, it was a very specific skill set that worked for the cons that she ran. And that's kind of the thing. She was supposed to be a con woman, not a bounty hunter. And she just kind of fell into the bounty hunter game because of her interactions with Spike and Jet.
Even as a bounty hunter, she was not supposed to be like a very skilled fighter. She was a good shot.
That's useful.
But she was not a fighter.
Yeah, she didn't. And even when she was bounty hunting, a lot of times she still would just use the con kind of thing. She would catch people off guard by, again, using the flirting method or something. She's a femme fatale. She's always going to do that. This Faye is not going to do that. She's going to pull a gun and just
call them
go
dicks.
crazy.
And I might get yelled at on the internet for saying this, but like, okay, say what you will about John Cho, he at least has some of the profile of Spike. Same thing with the guy who plays Jet. I just can't picture that actress as Faye for some reason. I don't know why.
Her energy's all wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with
it's
saying
her
that. It's like
energy.
just, again, but I think that, I don't know that I blame her. Again, it feels like the writing is the problem because they didn't write Faye.
The writing, and I feel like maybe they just didn't give her good direction.
Could be part of it.
I feel like they wanted to step down, or at least they said they wanted to step down. Again, how sexualized Faye was.
Like, you know who I could picture as a good
Faye?
Faye. Talking words on that Florence Pugh actress that was in the Black Widow movie in Midsummer. I could picture her as
the new one, the blonde one?
Yeah. Obviously, that
might be a little young, but I kind of see what you're going for a little bit. Maybe, I don't know. I didn't actually see Black Widow yet, so I don't know.
I think a lot of people could pull off Faye, and maybe
write
this
it
girl
well.
could have as well. Yeah, but I think a lot of it does come down to the writing and how it seems like, I don't know if the writers and the costume designers and stuff just didn't like Faye, or they're like, we want her to be empowered, quote unquote. But I feel like Faye was an empowered character.
Arguably, she's like,
and it's like
very self-possessed and like...
She stood equal to both Jet and Spike.
Yeah,
Right.
like, at no point
I never felt like she
it
was
was
lesser.
always a back and forth. Anytime they got a one up on Faye always got a one up on them. It was very back and forth the whole time.
The only time she ever needed rescued was at the church.
Well,
And she kind of walked into that one.
a little bit. The other time was like there was an episode where she kind of just ran out of gas in space, and it's like signal to anyone. But honestly, had it not been Jet and Spike, I think she could have weaseled her way out of that one and possibly stolen whatever ship picked her up.
She still did weasel out of it.
Oh, of course she did, because she's Faye and she knows what she's doing all the time.
And it's like, I don't want her to be perfect and always be capable. It's good when she has some issues, you know?
But like at the very end of episode 1, where Jet's like, give me back my gun, and she's just like,
it's
like,
just like, all right.
what was that?
Why?
Like, you wanna take someone's gun or whatever to go do your thing or whatever, and like he's like, is that my gun? You're like, yep. It's like, give me it back. Nope.
But she just pouted about it.
Yeah.
It's just the wrong energy.
Faye doesn't pout unless she's faking it.
Yeah.
Faye is a very self-assured, confident woman. And this really did just give child energy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, no matter what, she's in control of her situation. Whether it's real or not, she's in control. This one isn't.
Also, like, there's no chemistry really between any of the actors, I feel like.
John Cho and
I like the dynamic.
It's not perfect, but
For-
I
They
think
have a dynamic, but like the natural chemistry of like, haha, we're bros, but we like neg each other. Like, I don't feel like that's there.
I feel like for their versions of Spike and Jet, it works for me. Obviously, they're not the same Spike and Jet from the show, because the Spike and Jet from I feel again, I don't know how far this version of Spike and Jet met each other. It could have been like a few months ago, could have been a few years ago or something like that. But I feel like in the original show,
I feel like they've known each other long enough.
I was gonna say Spike and Jet, I feel like in the original show knew each other for years before the starts of the show.
Yeah, and this one, it kind of feels like they're more new partners.
No, I think you guys are right. And I think, like, because I was thinking to myself, why is it that I'm feeling like they're saying a lot, but they're not actually saying anything? And why did it feel like in the original show, they said very little, but said so much? And I think part of it is the runtime. The original show had a 22-minute runtime for each episode. And this one's got like anywhere from 37 minutes to an hour, depending on the episode. And I think that's where you're going to start to run into issues. Because if you have 22 minutes and you want to tell a whole story, beginning, middle, end, payoff, big climax and sort of stuff that Bebop always did, your writing has to be really tight. You have to keep everything on point. Anything someone says has to be important. It's everything is Chekhov's gun. If you're going to say something philosophical at the beginning of the episode, it has to pay off by the end. If you're going to like show a thing, it has to pay off by the end. Everything had to pay off. And I think when you have longer episodes, not to say that long form, hour-long dramas can't be good. I feel like a lot of times people fall into this pitfall of, I need to make everyone have banter or whatever, but they don't actually say anything with it. Like, we hear Jet go back and forth with Spike in this, but the conversations don't ever come back. It's there as filler to pad out the runtime. Mm-hmm. And you never had that in Bebop. Anytime they said something, it was important. Now, I feel like half the conversations could be taken out.
I do agree. And I feel like that's one of the things about screenwriting in general, where it's like there's supposed to be context and then there's supposed to be subtext to every conversation if it's going to be written well. And I feel like they really are just talking about nothing half the time. There's no like foreshadowing or subtext.
Oh no, they got to make sure Jet has a daughter and you got to get her a birthday present, damn it. Like, that's all the thing that matters. So, like, food, medicine. Nah, I need my daughter a birthday present. That's all.
I also feel like Spike didn't skip out nearly as much as he is in this.
Well, I think the problem is that new plot, kind of newish plot point where like Jet has no idea he's Syndicate, like he's ex-Syndicate, so like he has to like.
Also, like the Syndicate assassins, the way they're doing that doesn't really match up because the Syndicate came into play pretty late into Bebop.
Actually, we were about in the middle. That's about the point where they had, I think it was Jupiter Jazz, where we meet. I forget their name. They were the person who had a beef with Vicious because of the hormone chemical stuff. Gren, that's it. And yeah, that stuff with Faye and people getting mixed up with like, people were like, Spike, are you vicious? He's like, I'm not vicious. And he kicks at everybody's ass. Mm. And yeah, I think it was there. It was just like, I will say this. I think one thing the show is doing well enough is maybe expanding upon what goes on with the Syndicate a little bit. They're very shadow organization in the last show, which worked. But I always kind of found it weird that I'm sure Spike has come around Syndicate members or something in his years as a bounty hunter, and at no point they're like, "You're supposed to be dead. Someone killed this guy." Until right then.
The Syndicate also kind of feels like a joke in this. Like, they have a lot of humor elements added in to try and probably characterize these people, but...
I mean, that's kind of what we're saying, the thing we said with Vicious. They're trying to really humanize something that's supposed to be a monster. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. I don't know that it's working here very much, because no one's nearly as intimidating. I'm not expecting the Syndicate to take down Spike in episode 1. But it took him down really easy. I will say this. The other thing, I never understood why Vicious's name was Vicious. It feels really made up. Like, who calls their son Vicious? But here, I think it makes a lot more sense, because they also bring up that Spike used to be called Fearless.
Like,
Vicious,
code names, yeah.
It's a code name. They were both very high up in the organization. They're probably not the only people who have had that moniker. They're just the current holder of it. That makes a lot more sense to me. I actually like that was a world-building element that they included.
But I'm just like, so I'm having a hard time imagining how, with how they're portraying the Syndicate right now, like, the complete gravitas of, like, the Spike betrayal arc of him in the graveyard, like, I'm having a hard time picturing it with, like, the current portrayal of the Syndicate. Which would be something I would have to watch further on, but, like, it feels like it would lose a lot.
That also begs the question, too, like, he says to that one woman in the club, it's like, I go by Spike Spiegel now, so then that's implying in this show's universe that Spike Spiegel was a name he made up, so does he have a real name before he went by Fearless?
He definitely did, but we don't need to know that. And I'm really hoping they don't tell us that. It's one of the, like...
I'm gonna name him John.
I think you could have, like, probably said the same thing for the original show. Like, it would be weird if you died leaving a criminal organization and still went by your same name. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping they don't, like, give him some whole big backstory that has nothing to do with actual Cowboy Bebop.
That would be so weird.
It's...
So in other words, like, they don't do what they did in the Solo movie on how they gave Han Solo his last name.
Yeah. That was unneeded.
That was the worst part of that movie for me. And I like that movie a lot.
I feel
It's
like
fun.
Spike's backstory within the Syndicate in the original is very contained, and it's very good at characterizing him, because I feel like that's what humanized the Syndicate the most, was you saw Spike in it, and you saw him still being Spike.
And being Spike with Vicious.
Yeah.
So... there's clearly a human element in him, even in the original show, that we just don't get to see because maybe he's completely buried it. Maybe he's cut it out. Maybe he was faking it the whole time.
Well, what kind of threw me off, though, was, like, okay, like, one of the major reoccurring things in the original show was that Spike never got over Julia. Like, Julia was his love that he lost, but Julia in this show, she just, again, maybe she thinks that Spike's dead, which is fair, but, like, she just willingly marries Vicious.
It's so weird that they didn't have her run away, and now she's like, you have to protect me from him, so, like,
yeah,
I feel
Julia
like they
sucks.
really
Maybe
shot
Julia's the
Julia's
worst.
character.
Well, I mean, like, the whole, like, it was a well-shot scene, the scene where the 3 Syndicate leaders, like, yeah, you have to shoot Julia, and the gun was, like, blank, but, like...
Vicious, though, in that scene. He was so
bitch.
lame.
He is... if you ever wanted to, like, take, like, your character and just remove all their teeth, just...
yeah, that scene is a great example.
Yeah, he's, like... he doesn't even give me... like, villain vibes. He gives me, like, washed up rock star vibes.
Yeah.
I
really
also
sucks.
feel... So again, one of the major things about Vicious was eventually he takes over the Syndicate.
Yeah, I don't see
And-
that ever happening.
No.
Yeah, this one, he's like a little bitch about them. He's like, oh, take my whole hand. Thank you, leaders. Thank you.
Mm.
It was so
I
weird.
mean, there were other scenes in the original show that had Vicious and the trio that runs the Syndicate,
But
but he
he-
was always on point. He was always ready to go. Even when they were like, "Are you doing this?" He was just, "Yes, I'm doing it." Like, "Are you going to do it? It will be done." He was like, it was kind of Darth Vader and the Emperor a little bit, but like he was always
he feels
ready.
afraid of them. He was not afraid of them in the original.
Absolutely not. And like, I know at some point we're gonna get to the scene where he takes over, and I'm not gonna buy it because of this.
What if they try to redeem Vicious and he joins Spike? That would be such a
For
bad
Julia.
yeah.
Oh boy, no.
Or
thank
he
you.
dies a hero.
I mean, we
or
know
something,
from
and
the-
sacrifices.
I mean, we know from the trailer and
Please
the
stop writing fan fiction.
I mean, we know from the trailer and the opening of the show that they're gonna recreate the famous scene where like
Yeah.
they have
The church scene,
where they have like Spike points his gun at him and he has his sword,
Right.
like that famous shot. So that,
Yeah, and you know you can't really have an adaptation of that without that.
and
But-
also let's also not forget one other returning person, Yoko Kanno, doing the music.
Excellent job by Yoko Kanno, but
Yep.
I do. You could just say Yoko Kanno's in it. I'm like, all right, you don't have to say more than that. I know she's going to put in the work.
And I also like how they're like
I'm gonna
they
double check
they
it just
even
to
said
make sure.
in like one of the descriptions for the trailer, it's like, yeah, we couldn't think of anything better for Tank, so why even bother? So like, I'm glad they have Tank as the opening
That's fair.
because although I'm kind of disappointed they don't have Real Folk Blues as the ending.
So they did some shots very, very well when like copy pasting it from the anime. Like when they're landing Bebop in the water.
Yeah.
Beautiful, amazingly done.
I said it was so brown. It just didn't look colorful enough.
It was still like a very beautiful shot. In
They were like, we're in Tijuana, so it has to be brown.
I like-
It's weird.
I think the other thing is when Spike's exiting Bebop to go walk on Tijuana, like there's one point where the door's opening up where like it
That
looks
was
like
great,
it could
yeah.
almost be anime.
That was a
Yeah.
really good shot.
That's one of the shots where I was like,
Yeah.
that right.
Although
there.
I know they were like for the opening for the new show, like they were trying to recreate some of the poses from the anime, but it's one of those things where like some things don't translate. Like the one part where
Yeah.
Jet's just like running, like I thought that was kind of
It's-
weird.
There was, and I probably brought up this whenever we talked about any of the Satoshi Kon movies that we watched, but there was a channel that's kind of defunct now on YouTube called Every Frame of Painting, and they kind of went into editing in anime and stuff like that, specifically with Satoshi Kon because he was really good with that kind of stuff. There's timing with live action, there's timing with animation that they don't always line up correctly when you try to translate them. In animation, you can do something in 5 frames that would take you realistically in live action like 20 or more frames. And that can be a big thing for when you're trying to do certain types of actions, like whether it's the running thing or whether there's just like, I don't know, if you're trying to do quick cuts or something like that.
Oh my
There-
gosh.
Whoever, go watch the video of it because it's going to explain it way better than I can.
The
but-
amount of quick cuts in the fighting sequences does not work. It looks janky as all hell.
Sometimes, yeah. And I think they have a bit of an issue of like, when they are trying to stylize it, it feels like they pause a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a couple times where they're like, they'll do like 2 or 3 moves like, and then like it pauses for a beat,
Like
and then they do another
the
move.
opening in the casino, like the fight scene, really well done, but the cuts.
Might have needed a different kind of editing style a little bit.
Is John Cho doing his own stunts? Or do we not know?
Be
I
too
believe
surprised. He
so.
did-
If he's
That's pretty good.
He did break. Was it his wrist or his ankle
I think
in the production of this?
Oh man.
I'd have to look it up to see if he broke something in
Because
production.
he does some flips and stuff. It's pretty good if that's
Yeah.
him.
I mean, I don't know whether he's doing the flip. I know he's doing the actual like. a
Yeah,
lot
I
of the
mean, you
actual
can tell
fighting.
when it shows his face, but I was
Yeah.
wondering about some of the flips and stuff he does.
I feel like what this ultimately boils down to is like there's a reason anime and animation has gotten as popular as it has, and that's because you can do a lot in animation
You can do literally anything.
that you can't do in real life. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't work.
I will say I feel like this isn't a lazy like cash grab adaptation. I do think
no.
there was some
No.
heart in production, and it's just one of those things where it's like it's hard to top, even if it wasn't such a beloved classic. Like
I mean,
it's
that's ultimately what I was like saying way
Yeah.
before we ever even watched this was like you captured lightning in a bottle. You had the perfect animation. You had the perfect script. You had the perfect score, dub, everything. Everything happened that is like one of those like this doesn't happen every day. This doesn't happen every year. It was just a perfect collision of a bunch of artists at the same time, and it just worked. And you can't recapture that sort of thing by readapting it.
I think this adaptation was a passion project. You can tell they really loved it, but it just falls victim to it doesn't translate well to live action.
Yeah. Like, I'm a fan of a lot of adaptations, but it's usually based on that you're doing it in a different media. And I know there's a lot of people who'd be like, oh, it's live action, it's not animation, that's a different media. It's not as different as you think, and there's like some things that don't translate well. You want to translate a book to an animation or a live action, or into a musical, or into a movie, like whatever. Okay, yeah, that's a very big difference, and you can make a lot of like adjustments to the material to make it better.
Yeah, it's like the Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings movies. It's
Yeah.
like, obviously, for years those books existed, but you never had a visual, unless you count those 70s film from Ralph Bakshi, but like...
I actually have a soft spot for that.
But like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter specifically, you had no visual comparison. This was the first attempt to adapt it, so you had...
Yeah, and you can add to that. You can put more detail into your background and stuff and really make it feel a little more like I don't know how everyone like sees things in their head when they're reading, but there's like times where I'm just reading something and like I see it, but at the same time it's a little amorphous in my head. It's a little like foggy as to everything that's going on, but like you can create something really solid when you translate something into live action or animation into that sort of media from something that's just a printed word or even a manga or something like that. There's something to be added when you add motion to something. But then you have something that was like perfect in the media that it was in. And then you're translating it into an almost entirely parallel medium. What can you add at that point? And at a certain point, it's like you just start subtracting. Because some of the changes that you're making, and we've been talking about the changes that they've been making that were not very good, they're not very good.
It's like why most video game adaptations don't work. It was like...
Yeah.
It's because, well... A video game is one thing. It tells longer stories, and it tells its stories in very different ways.
Yeah.
Movies, not only are they shorter, but they tell their stories in different ways. So
Yeah. Good.
Like, there are adaptations for live action animes that work really well, like Rurouni no Kenshin.
That was pretty good.
It was a really good adaptation.
Yeah.
I think they should have realized.
I mean,
though,
arguably, that character really should like have won maybe a debate a couple of weeks ago. But you know,
like when you look at it,
I'm still sour.
Like it was based enough in reality that translating it over wasn't like this huge deal because translating this futuristic animation over, like, there's a lot of room for error, and they obviously hit a couple of road bumps with it.
That's why, like, we talked about stuff like Bakano or Banana Fish, like, working maybe as live action. Like, if Hollywood wanted to take one of those, I think it could work.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, though. Like, it kind of sounds like you're saying a little bit like aesthetically it didn't work, but I feel like the aesthetics is one of the few things where it did work for this live action series.
But I feel like trying to translate this completely futuristic world into something palatable for people watching, because I think live action ultimately has the goal of capturing the attention of people who may not be into anime.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily work.
I mean, there's a reason, like, I think Squid Game got so big and Danganronpa hasn't.
Danganronpa's pretty big.
Is it big? Like, everyone on Netflix watched it?
It's not on Netflix.
That's what I'm saying. It's not. The audience for Danganronpa is not as big as the audience for Squid Game.
Movies?
What?
Has there been a live action Danganronpa yet?
God, no, and I hope there never is.
Oh, I could have sworn
they wouldn't. They wouldn't.
No.
Japan has a big thing about.
They made a live action Assassination Classroom, and Kurono Sensei looks as terrifying.
Tentacles.
Yeah, as terrifying as.
So many tentacles.
That's like.
I kind of. A little, to get back to what you were saying about the futuristic making it palatable, I kind of don't agree with you on that. I feel like, yes, Cowboy Bebop, if we're talking about the original, was set in the future, but it felt like tomorrow as opposed to like 70 years into the future. And I think that was a little bit of the point, is that like, it's so many times you have like someone where it's like, oh, it's 100 years from now or whatever, and it's like, it's sterile 2001 A Space Odyssey or whatever, or it's like some sort of dystopian 1984 whatever. But I honestly think Cowboy Bebop might have one of the most realistic takes on the future. It's today,
No,
but with a little bit better technology.
I do agree with that. I just I don't think it translates well across the mediums. It's very stylistically done, but it's also still a little cartoonish.
I think it's okay to be a little cartoonish. Firefly was the same way, and honestly, it ripped off Bebop and
I mean,
Outlaw Star.
when I think, at least from this adaptation, like obviously you have the futuristic spaceships, you have not hyperdrive, but that warp technology, whatever you're going to call that.
Yeah, the warp gate thing.
But otherwise, if you go down to like New Tijuana or like that one colony planet, it looks just like you're in Mexico. It doesn't look futuristic at all. It looks just kind of
And like part of that is going to come from like who's like colonizing that particular planet or moon and stuff like that. They're going to bring a certain level of culture. I think like I forget what we were talking about, but we were talking about like futuristic stuff where it's like you have a desensitized sanitary future, or you have like the best example is like Afrofuturism, where there's like actual culture in your future.
Yeah.
And I think this
I enjoy
leans
that a
more
lot
towards
more.
it's a more lived in world.
So I think probably, and it could be solved with later episodes, the technology jump kind of feels jarring because they haven't really like explored space in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, just Mars and I guess
It wasn't
orbiting
Mars.
Earth.
It was
No, they go to Mars.
No, it was Tijuana and Venus.
Venus.
Yeah.
It's Venus.
Because the princess said she wanted to go to Mars, but she didn't make it.
Well, I know
there.
Tijuana's not on Mars, but I thought they went to Mars at a different.
No, they wanted to go. Yeah.
Ganymede. They were on Ganymede.
Yeah, they wanted to go to Mars.
Yeah. Okay.
And they said Spike was born on
Spike
Mars.
was from Mars. I know that much.
Wasn't he from Ganymede in the original though?
Nope,
He
Jet
was
is from
from
Ganymede.
Mars.
He was a cop on Ganymede.
You're right.
And I know they've at least shown graffiti of like the conflict on Titan. So that's something.
Just like they had this really great big reveal in the casino. Like I feel like that was a really good way to segue into it, but like they just haven't touched it in those first 2 episodes. So like you have the spaceship, but it's all beaten down. So like you don't really get this sense of like futuristic from it.
Yeah.
And then the swordfish comes out of nowhere.
I don't know. It's a smaller ship to fly planetary. I don't know. It kind of depends on like. I think to some degree this, and I want to look especially at other things like it, or that people would look and see and be able to compare it to. One of them is Firefly, which is very much, even more so than Cowboy Bebop, a Western set in space. But realistically, if you were to put it in the time period that the stories are kind of from, it's post-Civil War America. And they're like a riverboat that has smaller riverboats if you wanted to. Like, that's kind of how I look at the swordfish. You have your big boat that transports everything across the stars and whatnot.
Like
and you have your
Firefly,
small one for stuff.
it felt very spacey.
Yeah, because they're...
Again,
honestly,
this might
if we're
be
comparing-
solved later, but like from the original Bebop, I feel like a lot of the time, like the action was taking place planet side, but like it really felt like a lot of the story took place in space between the characters.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to the writing stuff. I think part of that, because I know they've had conversations in space a number of times, but I think part of that is that we're not remembering the conversations. I couldn't give you a quote from these shows that much, other than Faye being like, "You guys are dicks," but I'm not remembering that for good reasons. And I think like
I'm really hungry. Make sure you bring me noodles.
I did.
Sure.
I did kind of like the one scene at the end of episode 2 where like they're both trying to stay on the bomb pressure, and like the one guy's trying to talk in his mask, and they're like laughing. Oh, he said escape pod. Okay.
yeah, like.
So the end of kind of actually the entirety of episode 2 for me was like really weird because it really tried to play off the relationship between Jet and Spike, and like I don't feel like we had enough to go off of.
And I think that's part of the problem is that they're really trying to push some sort of establishment between the two, but it's the original show just had them established. They were old friends at that point who had interactions, but a lot of what they had was also unspoken. You could kind of tell in the body language of the two of them, in the way that the voice actors would like kind of play off of each other a little bit. They didn't have to say much to impart what they wanted to impart to each other because they understood each other a lot better. And I think that's what you were saying earlier. If they feel like new partners, yeah, they do feel like new partners and it's not working.
Okay, so this is also one of those things where like animation to live action doesn't translate well. In animation, you can get so much out of facial expressions and just like slight shifting of like light in the eyes.
That's what I was...
You can't in real life.
I think you kind of can, though. I've seen lots of movies that achieve that. I think they just didn't quite do it with this one.
But the ones who achieve it are a little few and far between.
But
I
mean,
really, really capture
I think
it.
actors in general, like that's one of the things that separates like acting on film to acting on stage is that you can get those micro expressions and stuff. So I think you can absolutely do it.
But it's not just on them. Is it going to be edited correctly?
Yeah,
is it going to be this? Is it going to be
all
that?
stuff
Versus
too,
the animation,
Also, like,
this is kind of what I was talking about with
you can't in anime a lot. There's like, oh, they're upset, so like a sheen that shoots across the eye. Like you can't
stuff like that. But I don't think that happens in Cowboy Bebop much.
Not really, but like, yeah, like
it's not that anime.
It's a little what I was talking about with that every frame of painting video.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Spike is very much like a flat character who relies on his micro expressions to portray things.
Honestly,
and, like, it's
all of them are, because half of the time when they're saying stuff, at least in the very beginning of the series, it's a front for them. Everyone's very closed off. They're not being vulnerable. But through their invulnerability, you understand their vulnerabilities. It's really weird. I'm like...
it didn't translate well for that scene. And like, it didn't feel very like emotionally fraught.
No.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if you remember this, but whenever he steps on the, I'm just going to call it landmine, and like takes the pressure, and he's like...
on a button.
I was like, there's a scene very much like it in... the one with the space shuttle, that episode where he has to get the swordfish fixed. There's a scene very much like it where Spike is like, I might be dying, and he doesn't say anything to anyone. He looks at the situation for 10 seconds, and then he just says to Jet, there's a bottle of whiskey I hid behind the fridge, enjoy. And Jet's like, what the and because he's like, that's all you have to say. And I was like, do not do that. You have not earned that in this mine scene. Because that is a big scene. And that's like, right before he lights a cigarette and says, whatever happens, happens.
I didn't feel any like emotion from that scene.
The one in the live action or the one in
live
the...
action.
Okay, because I'm like, that is a really good scene.
I was very close to being disowned.
Gav's already gone.
I feel like you were. I feel like you were supposed to like feel it and relate.
I guess
to like
so.
Spike being like, I want to tell you, but I can't. But I want to.
Yeah,
but
it just didn't work.
Yeah, you require a relationship that we can see is a mostly unspoken communication. And they don't have that yet. They probably won't by the end of the series. Because part of this is like that syndicate thing. They're clearly hiding stuff from each other. They can't connect like that.
Also, like... I want the rival syndicate group because that was such a big part of like Vicious's betrayal. Mm-hmm. But they're kind of like, oh, it's just the syndicate instead of like.
I mean, it wasn't there wasn't a rival syndicate group. It was a coup from inside the syndicate, and that's what.
No, there was the red one.
The Red Dragons.
White Tiger.
Okay, yeah. Well,
in like. The coup was between them trying to establish peace.
If they want to include it later, I think they have enough time if they want to really go into it. I'm sure they could.
I don't think they're going to because they're really just like, oh, the syndicate. Like, it's a singular entity.
And that's fine. I mean, you don't necessarily need a rival syndicate and peace talks to stage a coup.
You need it for the teacher.
But are they going to do it?
Probably not, no.
I don't know. We've essentially seen from their opening what episodes they're going to be covering. They're going to be covering Scratch. How do you do that without Ed? I don't know. You're going to be covering Mushroom Samba. How do you do that without Ed? I don't know. They're going to be covering a couple other things.
They're doing the AYoN episode.
Yeah, you don't need Ed for that, but...
What do you think is the reason that they kept Ed for the end? Like, what was the actual, like,
I
thought
don't know.
process?
It's probably one of those things where they have no idea how to do them.
So they're like, we're gonna, like, put it at the end just in case everyone hates it.
Yeah.
And for most reaction
Yeah.
I've been seeing, it's universally hated. And
It was those camera angles, man.
Ed's a very hard character to capture, which is why I think a lot of people were watching
You know what's hilarious,
the
though?
cast list.
You know what's hilarious, though? Ed is based on Yoko Kanno.
Really?
Watanabe literally met the person who's going to compose, and they're like, you know what? I love your mannerisms, I love all this stuff. I'm just going to make you into a character.
Yeah,
and
I
it made
bet you
them
did hear
more
about
eccentric in the show, of course. But like, you literally had Yoko Kanno on set, and you were working with them the whole time. You could have just like done the exact same thing. Like, here, feed me some stuff. Let's just write a character.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everyone's a little bit based on someone. I forget who Jet's
I
based
saw
on.
in like
but...
old character designs that Ed used to be like a boy with like a baseball cap or something.
I mean, you could look at a lot of different like.
Maybe they
concept
changed
stuff.
it once they met Yoko Kanno.
I don't know. I mean, everyone's a little bit based on somebody. I forget who Jet's based on, but I know that. And I forgot his name again. I brought this up whenever we actually did Bebop. Who Spike is based on. He's that Japanese actor. And I know that Faye is supposed to be the adult version of Natalie Portman in The Professional.
I thought Spike was based a little bit off of Clint Eastwood.
No,
It's
he's,
an actual Japanese actor, and they like took him
God damn it.
out of a magazine shoot the guy did,
Yeah.
where he's like lounging on the chair like this.
I brought him up in the Bebop episode, and I forgot.
He had the same kind of hair. And
It
He's
starts
everything.
literally like
It's
1 for 1.
exactly
I really
like
think it starts with the T.
T.
Tante Monogatari.
Ooh, remembered one tiny detail.
It's
Yeah.
Spike.
Wow.
Honestly, if you were ever gonna have a live action Spike,
That would have
it's
been it.
it's him.
They literally they're like the outfit iconic, the
Like,
energy
Like look at the
iconic.
like down to the nose. It's him.
Wow.
That's funny.
No, yeah, he would have been perfect. But sadly, he died like probably in the 90s or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like we've kind of veered wildly all over the place.
I think we're still on subject. It's all Bebop.
We've gone on weirder tangents before.
No, I don't
True.
think it's tangents necessarily. Is like we're on one topic and then we're like, whoa, all the way over to this
I
other
mean,
one.
that's kind of how podcasts go.
Yeah.
Fair.
I don't know. Do we have any other thoughts on this?
I'm willing to give more episodes a shot before I make a final decision. I will say that, like, I will admit, I did see the ending scene of episode 10 that they showed Ed in, and it was bad. I agree with the internet on that one, but
Not having Ed takes away so much.
It does.
But
Ed is a beloved character.
I'm
maybe
willing.
they're hoping to sequel bait a little bit.
Oh, yeah, they're
Be like,
guaranteed.
we'll bring back Ed. We'll bring in Ed if you give us a season 2.
I'm willing to see how divergent they're going to go with the Syndicate story and what their version of the Syndicate, like, because I feel like episode 10 is going to be basically the church. I feel like that's going to be the season finale.
Maybe.
That would make the most sense.
That's so far away. Like,
Because I think I read the descriptions on Netflix of most of the episodes, and most of them are just kind of, mission of the week kind of thing,
Mhm.
except for.
I mean, that's what Bebop
That's how it
always
is.
Yeah.
So.
I'm disappointed that we didn't get Cowboy Andy, but I knew they were never going to do him.
One other thing, too.
but that's what made the episode so good.
It is.
What
It very
you,
much is.
What you mean? Those two people that did the show, the
No.
bounty show, because
So-
that was kind of half-assed.
No,
you know?
no.
Teddy Bomber?
Teddy Bomber, Cowboy Andy, and Darren Norris is playing like this blonde version of Spike, who's an actual cowboy with a horse.
And
And
he
they're-
keeps
Oh,
stealing the
that's
bounty
right.
from
It's
him.
the funniest goddamn
Like,
episode.
Spike catches the Teddy Bomber, and then this guy literally comes in, like, busts the door in,
And he's got a freaking
Tramples Spike
soundtrack
under
with
a
him the whole
horse.
time.
and then the Teddy Bomber gets away, and Spike's like, dude, what the f-?
Yeah.
And then they do the whole dog and pony show again and again until they destroy a building.
And, like, they took that, which really is what made the episode so funny.
Oh yeah,
and
no one
great.
even remembers. Even in episode, everyone's like, dude, who even are you? I'm Teddy Bomber. It's like, oh yeah, we were watching the cowboy guy.
And like they tried to make it like the shoehorned emotional moment for Jet and Spike, and it took away a lot.
Yeah. Honestly, again, I feel like, and weirdly enough, the episode that has that moment that I talked about has the truck that they're in. That episode was about people hijacking space freighters with a space freighter. They're on a space freighter.
This isn't the other bomb one, is it?
The other bomb one?
Yeah, the one where the guy blows up the mine and Spike's like, I'll sacrifice myself to blow a hole in the tunnel. It was more with Faye than with Jet. I don't think Jet was really in that episode.
I'm really trying to remember this because, like, they blow a hole in the tunnel? The space
They were
tunnel?
with the bounty. No, it was not in space.
Okay, alright. Because I'm thinking Boogie Woogie Feng Shui, and that's not what happened, I don't think. There was some sort of weird
bounty hunter's
cosmic thing going on.
The bounty hunter's wife, who's like,
Oh.
I hate bounty hunters because my husband was one.
That's Heavy Metal Queen.
That one.
They got, like, stuck on an asteroid belt or something. Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Which episode are you talking about?
I'm talking about the one where Spike has to get his ship fixed by that old guy.
He has to get it fixed in that one too, which is why
But
my
I-
mind went there.
I think he just doesn't have it for the episode. I think that's the thing. Like, it was in the one you're thinking of, he just doesn't have it. He's got a hangover, and he's just, like, hitching a ride. But
he has it. He has it, but him and Faye, their things are sabotaged, which is why they're hitching a ride.
see, the sabotage thing is that other episode, though. The whole thing with them hijacking the freight trucks was they had these, like, harpoons that came out of theirs
Maybe there was
that would
multiple
hit
episodes of
and
sabotage.
that would hit the electrical system in another
No, so-
vehicle with a virus.
So they were in a diner. They don't know
No, I
what
remember the diner,
happened.
yeah.
They don't know what happened to their stuff. They just knew it was wrecked.
Okay, so it's out of the episode. Like, the swordfish is important in that other episode, though. That's the one I'm talking about.
That wasn't the one with the Eco Warriors, was it?
Nope, that's the monkey one. They'll be doing that, too, but...
With trees.
Oh, yeah, they're turning them into trees instead of monkeys. That's
I'm
weird. That doesn't make any
trying
sense.
so hard to think of what episode you're talking about now.
It's... You don't remember the one where they launch the frickin' NASA shuttle to catch Spike on his descent back to Earth? We're gonna have to watch this fucking episode.
It's been 10 years since I saw this.
Listen, Spike almost kills himself a lot, okay?
This is the episode that has the line, whatever happens, happens. It's where it comes from. That's such an important Spike line.
Don't mind me.
Go ahead, Google it.
I'm gonna Google.
I think clearly from where we're going back and forth of like what episodes, I think Bebop, the original show, did everything that they could with their premise. And that's probably why they never went with a sequel or anything like that other than the movie. So...
No, they said they went even crazier with Space Dandy.
Yeah, but that's far more of a surreal comedy.
Space Dandy was like a tribute to Cowboy
I mean, it was the
Bebop.
same guy,
Yeah.
Shintaro Watanabe.
I'll give them points for this. They named the casino Watanabe Casino. So,
That's true.
Oh dang.
are you remembering this episode now?
No. I'm looking at the session list. And some of the stuff I thought was later on was pretty early.
Yeah, I think that's kind of just something that happens with episodic shows. You like have your favorite episodes, and you always think like, "Oh, I'm waiting for that to happen." That's going to be much later because clearly they save the best stuff for last or something. But like, it kind of bounces around a little bit. You never really know what you're going to get with some shows like that. That's kind of good. Like Mushroom Sun was very early. Honestly, it's like right after they get Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other thoughts here?
I'm good.
Okay, so final question. Who's going to continue watching this?
I'll
I know you said...
give it a few more
Okay.
episodes.
I'll watch a couple more, but like, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't work.
Hmm.
And I don't know necessarily if this would be able to hook people into it. Maybe people who knew nothing about Bebop, but would that make them want to watch Bebop. The
Oh no,
anime.
it won't. I know how people are, and they're like, "Well, I got this version. Why would I want the other version?"
My dad.
Fuck.
It's live action. I don't need these kids' cartoons. Damn it.
That's my dad. 100%. He was like, we can let's watch Prison School, the live action version, but we're not gonna watch.
Isn't that like porn or something?
You're not far off.
You're not far off.
You're not far off.
Okay.
But
Next week, Prison School.
no.
No, we're not doing that.
Wild horses.
Wild Horses, was that the one I'm thinking of?
Sounds like it.
Because the other truck one was Heavy Metal Queen. I know that. Yeah. So we might as well talk about next week then. We've been going back and forth talking about possibly like looking at movies where memes came from to see what is the most memed movie of all time, and we think we've narrowed it down to maybe 4. There's probably others.
More,
But-
a lot more.
Yeah, but we were thinking like pound for pound, this is probably where the most memes come from, or at the very least where people feel like the most memes come from. And we settled on, what are the 4 that we settled on?
Revenge of the Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith,
Revenge
Lord
of
of
the
the
Sith.
Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring,
Fellowship, and Spider-Man 3,
Spider-Man 3.
and B-Movie. So, obviously, we're going to be doing this for 4 weeks. In 4 weeks is the 20th anniversary of Fellowship of the Ring. We're going to have to do that day. That's just what it is. So what were we talking about doing for
Revenge of
next
the
week?
Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. Alright, so it's basically anime. And honestly, there is some canon Star Wars anime now. So Star Wars is anime. Let's watch Revenge of the Sith. We'll count up all the memes and the quality of them therein and figure out in the next 4 weeks, we'll figure out the most memed movies and all that good stuff. So come back for the lulz. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon for notifications. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, and if you haven't already, check out some of our previous episodes, our daily gaming videos, or our parody series Madoka Magically Abridged. See you next time!